Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nessus Centaur Astrology class. This is part of my free online class I'm doing to introduce you and help you integrate and work with the centaurs of astrology. The centaurs are the chaotic, darker shadows within ourselves, the patterns within ourselves, and they show us how we can become the best versions of ourselves, and also where our deepest and most powerful gifts lie as well. Asteroids are subtle. So especially with the Centaur asteroids, there's something that the more work you do, the more you get to know them. For some people who are maybe not awakened yet or are just becoming self-aware, their natal chart will be a good place to start. And then once you start getting to a place of true healing, the centaurs can really jump in. So Nessus in the chart. Nessus is Greek for baby bird. And this asteroid has a phenomenal, he orbits every 123 years. 1, 2, 3. And he's an aloof asteroid. He goes between Saturn and Pluto. And he connects those energies in a way. Saturn, the rigid disciplinarian, Pluto, the destroy and rebirth cycle. But the fun part is that even between orbiting around them, he's very aloof. He doesn't actually come close to any planet. And it's estimated that he won't come close to any planet for about 20,000 more years. So yeah, that's an aloof little asteroid. He likes to do the deep dark work himself. So Nessus in our chart is all about breaking cycles. That's kind of his gift out of all the centaurs. And he's a dark centaur. When we look at him in the natal chart, it shows our cycles of abuse, patterns of abuse, but also our generational traumas that get passed down. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So the Nessus process is one that's hard to put into material form. It's not black and white. It's not, like a lot of the other planets and stuff, because this can be something that isn't even technically related to you. For example, if it's a trauma that happens with your culture or family and the collective consciousness, and that's where it's manifesting from, then it's going to be actualized in a whole different way. So Nessus signifies the deepest shadow material that we inherit, usually as a pre-existing condition of our human birth. And it signifies both the personal experience of violent trauma, but also is passed down genetically through epigenetics and is activated by our own personal experiences or powerful transits. So basically, stuff that has happened in our family that is ingrained into our DNA, it can trigger up, and it affects us as if it's our own trauma. Well, it is our own trauma, but it's passed down. It also represents the way that these traumas pass into our family and collective unconscious. They kind of slowly poison our capability to become self-actualized and even aware of our origins at times. So Nessus has a big bad name when it comes into the charts. So in the birth chart, Nessus is one of the hardest ones that's material to confront. It's everything that a family or culture group doesn't want to talk about. That's Nessus. So, for example, if your brother was a suicide bomber, it's not something you probably talk about at Thanksgiving dinner. Or even collective traumas like the Holocaust, or how a lot of the Europeans treated the indigenous folk when they came onto their land, and onwards, the slaves, what happened to the slaves. So the trauma can be from the side of the abuser or the the abused, whether you're watching something happen and part of doing it, or whether you're someone trying to escape from it. So the cycle is huge, and those triggers that everyone wants to push down and suppress because it's just so ugly, that is what gets passed down through epigenetics into our DNA, and we are still dealing with it, like it or not. But it also works with the abuse that we have cycled in our life. People that have a prominent Nessus in their chart, prominent meaning it lies in one of, a powerful house, like the first house, or seventh house, or any of the angular houses, or that it's conjunct to any of the planets or in opposition to them. When people have a prominent Nessus, then abuse is going to be a theme in their life, one way or another. And how people handle abuse is generally they start to seek out people who treat them how their abusers did. They treat themselves how their abuser treated them, or they treat others how their abuser treated them. So those are three kind of ways that abuse starts to create a cycle in anybody's lives. And that's the Nessus theme, is that pattern of that abuse right there. So that's important to know. So someone with a prominent Nessus, abuse is a theme of their life, and they are somehow responsive to it at that time, meaning it's been triggered, it is happening, or it's constantly hovering over them. So remember, astrology with the Centaurs, it's not about characteristics of behavior like the other planets that we look at in, our houses and those fun parts of the natal chart. They're more behavior patterns, and they have a subtle effect when it comes to the Centaurs. They're what lies beneath the surface. So Centaur work is pushing these things up to a place where we can appropriately and in a healing way deal with them. But that's where we also find our deepest gifts. And that's what the Centaurs bring. They're not easy. There's no such thing as an easy Centaur in astrology. Maybe Charlico, but the rest are pretty hard to deal with. But the reason anything that's hard to deal with is far, far more rewarding. So another thing about Nessus is with these cycles and patterns of abuse, obsession can be in there, right? Think of the Pluto kind of energy with Saturn. It can bring almost an obsessive compulsive behavioral pattern. So the more work we do with the Centaurs, the further we get. One thing that's really important to know when you're working with asteroids in your natal chart, when you're looking at the orbs, check, in their planetary aspects. With asteroids, we only go 2 degrees to either side. Sometimes we go 4 degrees with planets in our natal chart. So 2 degrees is for asteroids, smaller scale. So the conjunctions, oppositions, and squares are the biggest here. That's what we're looking for with Nessus. And again, the house and planets tell a lot of the story that goes with those. Trines can be important because a trine aspect with Nessus, it can facilitate, meaning you can identify someone who is easily falling prey or would easily fall prey to cycles of abuse or patterns of abuse. So Nessus work is nebulous, frustrating. It's painful. It is truly the work of being a better ancestor and transmuting the pain that previous generations have left behind. So, as I said at the beginning, Nessus is how we break cycles. So let's look at Nessus and the energies that Nessus would bring to some of the signs. Keep in mind your own chart, you're going to have aspects to Nessus and a lot more information, the house it's in and onwards and onwards. So you can always reach out to me if you would like a personal astrological session with me online. They're only $50 and I would love to help you out. So let's look at Nessus and Aries. So Nessus and Aries, here we see someone who can become obsessed with always being in charge, always being right, always winning no matter what the cost, winning even if it means, you know, letting other people down. Nessus and Aries can become very obsessed with their own ego. The selfishness of Aries can turn into a very dangerous pattern of abuse, almost narcissistic if Nessus is here. So they might try to control others with anger, with dominance, any of the warrior tactics that Aries is good. It can even be physical. Aries, of course, is ruled by Mars, which is an action. So sometimes Nessus here, it can show physical abuse, again, from or to, depending on the aspects and the house that it's in. So cycles of abuse tend to be broken by finally getting angry at the abuser. When Aries is confronted with its own anger, full on, and the war is declared, that can start to break some of the cycles. Assertiveness is key in overcoming abuse or destruction when it comes to Aries here. So empowerment comes from leading or standing on their own. The Aries independence is their key to breaking patterns. Trust issues are usually something to worry about here as well. But again, standing in their power, breaking the patterns with Aries is someone confronting. So Nessus in Taurus. So this person can become obsessed with the material world, from shopping to money to looks, can go. They try to control others by limiting their access to money. Taurus is very also principle oriented, but their principles can actually become the pattern of abuse for someone else. If somebody doesn't see life their way, they can be the super strict control freaks in a way, I guess you could say. So they also like to make, or not like to make, the Nessus and Taurus, sometimes the abusers or abusee will try to control by making someone dependent on them financially. So cycles of abuse are broken with self-sufficiency here, especially, again, with Taurus in the financial sense, but also in making their own choices and developing their own self-worth. Nessus in Gemini. So Nessus and Gemini can be obsessed with winning arguments and debates, getting their way via persuasion, manipulation. That's a big Gemini shadow. So Nessus in Gemini can be very manipulative in their abusive cycle. This person can literally fall in love with their own voice and shut off their ears to anybody else. So this is the pattern of abuse if there's a prominent Nessus in Gemini. So control usually is obtained over others with verbal abuse and trickery. Cycles of abuse and control are broken when people, or when they speak for themselves, get help from a support network, or when they share their story. Nessus in Cancer can become obsessed with family, with tradition, likely to become the patriarch or matriarch, kind of abuse that way. I am the parent. Abuse can manifest as being the bully or control freak of the family. They abuse with emotional control and emotional manipulation, smothering, helicopter parenting, possessiveness. So cycles of abuse here have to be with someone leaving the abuser, even if it is a family member. Self-nurture and protection is something that's needed for empowerment and freedom with Nessus in Cancer. Nessus in Leo. So this is an interesting one. Nessus in Leo can become self-obsessed and also hedonistic almost, where the pleasures in life can force others into doing things they might not want to do. This person can control and be demanding of others' attentions, and will do whatever it takes to have, the eye and energy of the person they're abusing. And it can manifest in many ways, from criticism to buying attention to bullying to dramatic outbursts. Drama is a Leo shadow. So one needs to literally learn to save themselves when they're in this cycle, just because it's a dangerous one, especially because Leos can be so loud and prominent that it's easy with Nessus there to be swept off your feet one minute and then wonder how you got to a place in the next minute. So shaking off the chains of belief with Leo, or literally physically getting up, moving to a new town, starting over. Nessus in Capricorn is where we're going to go next. Apparently, my notes, I do not have Virgo. Do I? I do. Let's go to Virgo, because it's not Capricorn next. So Nessus in Virgo. Here we can see somebody who's obsessed with organization, neatness, routine, health, work, literally overall perfection. Thinking of that movie when we were kids, Sleeping with the Enemy, where she's straightening all the towels, making all the cups fit perfectly in the cupboard. That's probably somebody who had a very prominent Nessus in Virgo. So anytime Nessus is in Virgo, the abuse is associated with either health or service. They control others with doubt, unhelpful criticism. They might even, fake an illness or make someone else sick, so they have to be there for them. So it can also just be as simple as playing off insecurities or nitpicking. So cycles of abuse are broken by concentrating on healing the physical, emotional, and spiritual and mental parts. Nessus in Virgo needs to heal. That's what Virgo is the healer. So that's a good way to stop. And they can resolve a lot of this if they create an atmosphere, a tribe of healers around them. Nessus in Libra. So Libra, it's hard to think of anything evil with the Libra energy, but it's there. Nessus can be abusive there too. So Nessus in Libra becomes obsessed with fairness, justice, harmony, or peace. What? Too much of that? But this obsession can literally cause an unrealistic view of the world and relationships, and it can cause unnecessary arguments and battles. So here they control others literally with deception, manipulation, using weaknesses, and they can become very codependent in this relationship. The Libra partnership is amplified and not in a good way. So boundaries are something that are constantly either are being broken down, and the other side will have too many. So there's not balance when Nessus is in Libra. Creates chaos there. Nessus in Scorpio. So Nessus in Scorpio, this one, of course, it's all about power. So this is, it's an obsession with power, control over power, playing the puppeteer with people. Their desires basically will take over, even their own abuse. So sometimes here, the abuser isn't just, abuser or abusee. They can be self-sabotage here as well. So Scorpio Nessus is all about control and usually tries to control others via sex, money, general power plays. Again, manipulation. Scorpio is a detective and they're all about psychology. So they really know what's going on inside of you. So to break away from the cycle is going to involve the death of something, because that's how Scorpio works. Something has to die, metaphorically, hopefully, but sometimes literally. Sometimes a good way of putting it is a sacrifice needs to be made to initiate transformation. So it could be the old self, could be a relationship, a habit, way of life, many things. Let's go to Nessus in Sagittarius. Expansion here. Anytime Sag is there, expansion comes in, and that can be bad, right? This is a person who gets carried away with any obsession. The element of obsession is fascinating to Sagittarius. So all of a sudden, learning, spirituality, travel, expression, sharing their knowledge, competition become the be all end all. Nessus there, that is their, they can't take their eye off the prize. That's all there is to it. So they can try to control others with maybe a know-it-all attitude. Patronizing techniques come in here, demoralizing others, even with humor. Quick insults, those wittiness, shame, deflecting, and carelessness are all ways that the Sagittarius Nessus works. So not a pleasant place to be. And to overcome these cycles of abuse, you basically need freedom, right? That's the Sagittarius plus side. Freedom! Shake off the chains, whether it be a belief or a mindset, or physically get up and shake it off, leave. Nessus in Capricorn. So these people, the dark obsession, the patterns are all around career, ambition, reputation, structure, even control itself. That's a very Saturn element, right? So they can control others with sternness, being uncompromising, literal general dominance. And then also, as with kind of similar to Taurus, financial or emotional dependency. So cycles for Capricorn in abuse are letting go of control and fears around having control. So getting a little bit crazy, liberating yourself. That's a good way to deal with the Nessus in Capricorn. Nessus in Aquarius. This can become patterns of abuse that start to come through activism, technology, turning a revolution or a rebellion into something that can be dangerous, and instead of benefiting humanity is actually distorting it or hurting it. Communication here, innovation, change, all those things. Usually Aquarius has a peaceful rebel kind of archetype to it. Nessus here would change that into the dangerous rebel. So that they can actually try to control others using their charisma. Here, peer pressure is huge. Group or mob mentality, that's an Aquarian shadow. Leveraging weaknesses in reasoning or personal authority. So to break cycles in Aquarius, getting their voice heard, understanding the ego's needs, and finding innovative ways to express and obtain their own goals. Detachment also can be a key empowerment tool here for Aquarius as well. Aquarius has the gift of aloofness. So if they can actually detach from the abuse, then they can get a big picture vision of what's actually going on. Nessus and Pisces. So Pisces, again, the energy here, the pattern of abuse is usually around escaping reality. Pisces already kind of hover on the brink of reality. But we are here in this human form. So we don't belong somewhere else. So addiction can be a huge one in here, becoming obsessed with spirituality, love, or what they think is love, emotional indulgences, and yeah, I'm going to say the word addiction here too, because Pisces is one of the signs that can still be looking to numb or to get out, because they're just so in tune with the environment. They're picking up traumas from everyone. So for them, sometimes it's easy to find an easy way out. So they control others with playing on emotions, using their perception as a weapon. Playing the victim is a huge one for Pisces. Avoiding responsibilities. They can become the corrupt healer, seeking out those that are weak or in need of help, and entrapping them with dependency. So the cycles here are broken by listening and following their intuition, finding time to be alone in solitude with themselves, learn healthy detachment, and seek out healers or people who have been in similar situations to help them overcome that cycle. So those are just some examples of Nessus through the signs. Obviously, Nessus in your chart is going to, first of all, we have to see if it's even a big thing in your chart. Then we look at the sign, the house, and then what planets are in conjunction, opposition, or square with it. That's kind of how we can tell your pattern. And from that, we can actually determine many things. We can even sometimes suggest stories that might have been there. It's pretty cool. There's even been some past life things that have come up with Nessus in astrology that I love doing people's charts for. So in closing, the Centaurs have an interesting story. There's just one huge story about them in Greek mythology, and it has to do with Hercules and wine and a ton of arrows killing them all. So Nessus was an interesting one because he was actually didn't even get a chance to go after the wine. He was killed by Hercules. So Nessus, but he was the reason Hercules died, interestingly enough. So the story of Nessus tells us a lot about what his place in the chart does. So Nessus was the son of Centaurus, who is the father of all creatures known as the Centaurs. And Nessus is well known for his part in the story because he was a ferryman. So he helped people cross this river. And one day he had to carry Deianira, the wife of Hercules, across the river. And after they crossed the river, Nessus tried to have sex with her. He thought she was pretty hot, so he was going at it. But Hercules was watching from the other riverbank, and he got a little jealous, obviously, and shot an arrow straight into Nessus's chest. So before Nessus drew his final breath with this arrow in his chest, Nessus told Deianira that his blood would ensure that her husband would be faithful to her for all eternity. And Deianira believed him, and so she collected some of the Centaur's blood and she kept it. So years later, Hercules fell in love with another woman, Iole. And Deianira, afraid that he might abandon her, dipped a shirt or tunic into the Centaur's blood and gave it to him as he was leaving for a gathering. So after he left, she accidentally spilled some of the blood on the floor. And when it started fuming, she then realized that it was in fact poison and not a love potion. So she tried to stop Hercules from wearing the shirt. However, the hero had already worn it and his flesh had started burning, and in deep, deep pain, he threw himself into a funeral pyre and died. So the reason we tell the story is because we can see the way the story plays out is usually how the energy of the Centaur plays out in our charts. And so you can see the cycle here, the cycle of abuse and the results that come down from it. And that's kind of how we look at it in our chart. So for more generational accuracy, looking at if it's any of the karmic houses or angular houses can tell a bit of the story, and then combining it with the signs and then combining it with the aspects is how we would do that. So thank you for being with me today. And I will see you tomorrow for yet another Centaur. Mwah! Have a great day. Enjoy working with Nessus. Bye.